This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. Let's just consider it a vitamin or a supplement for your mind and heart. I'm so glad that you've joined me today. And wherever you download podcasts, would you subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom? I would greatly appreciate it. We're kind of talking about some basics these last couple of times together. I want to ask you a question. Who are you? And are you really desperate to be the person you were created to be? Two questions. Who are you? And are you really desperate? I mean really desperate to be the person you were created to be. Several years ago, my wife and I lived in Southeast Michigan, one of the suburbs of that great city of Detroit. And I have always, my entire life, loved to swim. Now, I was never good enough that I could have joined an Olympic team. I could barely keep myself afloat. But I had a built-in pool in my backyard there in Southeast Michigan. And any time that I was free, I would be in my pool, either cleaning it, maintaining it, or swimming, playing in the water. I still, to this day, love sunshine and water. And I was actually on a sabbatical break, so I was swimming every day. And I came up with this bright idea because I had these little sticks and other kinds of circles that I threw in the water, dive sticks. And I would dive to the bottom of my pool and hold my breath and retrieve all of them, then pop up to the top and lay them on the side, up on the sidewalk. And it was a wonderful situation, and I was having a great time. And I was getting a little bit fatigued and tired, and I threw all of it in the water and dove to the deep end, and I was picking up my dive sticks and all of my circles and doing all of those things. And I was fighting and swimming to get up. I was in the deep end of my pool, and I thought I had crested and reached the top. And I took a big gulp of air in. The only problem was I had not cleared the water line, and I had ingested through my nose and mouth a lot of chlorinated water. I pulled myself out of the pool. My wife, who is a non-swimmer, was sitting at the other end of the patio, and I am spitting up water. I am gasping for air. I am hacking and coughing and out of breath and doing my best to get my breath. And at that point, I could only think of one thing: air. Oxygen isn't something you think about until it's depleted. And at that moment, as I am spitting up water, gasping for oxygen, trying to fill my lungs with air, I was desperate for one thing: air. I never thought about how much money do I have in the bank. I wonder how many people love me. I wonder where we'll go on vacation next year. None of those things mattered to me. The only thing that mattered was I needed air. I was desperate. Well, you can tell because I'm here, I live to tell the story. Character is a lot like oxygen. You don't really think about it until it's depleted. I am imagining that you can go many days, I certainly do, where I never give one thought to the fact that I'm breathing in air. Unfortunately, for many people, their character is that same way. Most people don't think about character until it's depleted. But if you're going to be a leader, you're going to be a person of value in this world, you have to have good character. Lots of things go into making good character. Let's just talk about a couple of them here while we're together. The first thing that you have to do is keep your word. There have been times that I, especially in my younger days of leading, that I made promises without really thinking about all that it was going to cost me, and not in money, but in time, and how would I get from where I was to where I needed to be for that. And I had to keep my word. And so I've learned to adjust it and not to promise things unless I am absolutely, totally convinced that I can carry them out. And so you've got to keep your word. The moment people don't trust your word, they'll stop following you. They'll stop listening to you. As a matter of fact, when trust goes down and trust has been broken, whether you realize it or not, your leadership is pretty well spent. People will not follow anyone they don't trust. Another thing that I had to learn early on, and it is a part of the character, is quit trying to please all of the naysayers. I don't care how wonderful you are, how gifted you are, what a great leader you are. There are always people around us who relish their responsibility to be the naysayer. There are certain people that are extremely comfortable with being the rain on everyone's parade. And if you make your goal, because many of us are people pleasers, and you want to please them, and so you bend over backwards trying to help the naysayer, trying to do what they want, trying to get them to be your friend, only to find out it really doesn't matter what you do. They're going to find fault. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to them, and I'm not saying that at times they don't have something important to say that we need to hear. But instead of trying to play to the naysayers and trying to please them or trying to placate them, just do the right thing. Gather the information, follow your vision, follow your goals, and the ones that are going to go along with you, go along with them. And the ones who are going to stand on the sidelines and criticize, go ahead and let them criticize. I went to college as a history major, and I used to, in my younger days, when we would travel across the country, I would stop and look at all the historical signs across the country on the roadside. Some of them are interesting, and some of them would only be interesting to the 5 people that live in that particular community. But in all of my reading of those signs across the United States, I have never yet seen a historical sign erected in honor of a critic. Never have I read a sign that says, "Here George said it could never happen." So quit trying to make the naysayers happy. If you do that, you'll endure a life of where you're totally frustrated. The only person you can really work on and the only person you can really change is yourself. And one of the basics of who you are and building your character is make up your mind right now that you're going to be a part of that never-ending process of skill and character development. That's what leaders do. They're never satisfied. They never come to a place where they can say, I now know everything I need to know. I now possess every skill that I need to have in order to be the leader that I need to be. You need to continually stretch yourself and keep your skills moving in a positive direction. Always develop your character. Be a person of integrity. Be a man or woman that keeps your word. Be someone that others can count on. Now, we all have certain things in our lives. As a matter of fact, I heard someone say years ago, and I believe it is so true, that many of our weaknesses are overextensions of our strengths. For that matter, I love to talk. I've been told by my grandmother that even as a young child, I would go to the neighbors and have just running comments continually. Well, the problem is you have one mouth and 2 ears, and I think God must have intended for that to be a kind of an equation. And because I know that I like to talk, early in my leadership practices, I somehow developed the ability to ask questions. My grandmother said that I even did this as a young person, to the point that she and my grandfather and even my mother would become frustrated with me and ask me, "Are you going to be a lawyer asking all these questions. But because I knew I liked to talk, somewhere along the way I discovered that if you ask questions, you'll learn something. If there's someone that you need to draw into the conversation or draw out of themselves, ask them questions. And so all of these last 20, 30 years, I am always thinking about, if I see this person tomorrow or in that meeting next week, what are some questions that I want to ask of those that are there, that I might learn something, or that I might come to a sense of understanding of what's going on. There have been times in my journal when I didn't know what else to write. I try to write some things down to stretch me and to think about. I just try to come up with some days 5 to 10 good questions to ask. And then that next week or two, I'll practice that by asking those questions to the people that I'm going to be meeting with. I've learned this very important truth, and it's a real character development. The more you listen, the smarter you become. I have never learned anything, or next to nothing, when I've done all the talking. But I've learned that the more that I listen to others, the more things I learn, and ultimately, the smarter you become. I know it's my weakness. It's a strength to be able to talk, but it's also a weakness. So I have to consciously develop, I am going to ask questions. I'm going to draw that person out. And I'm going to make up my mind tonight while I'm talking to them. I'm going to learn 3 things about them that I didn't know before. Hey, this is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom on leadership, goal setting, and productivity. Consider it your vitamin and supplement for your mind and heart. Thanks for joining us wherever it is that you subscribe to podcasts or you download them. Please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom. And until next time, have a great and blessed day and be the leader that you were intended to be. Have a great and wonderful